Dr. Amit Sen, this is Amitabh
Partner.
Bachchan. I just want to uh, uh, just take up a little further on what we heard just now from Kailashji. I had the great privilege to spend time with him on one of my shows earlier on some years ago, where he briefed us and told us and educated us on what was going through and what was happening to the children, and how he himself and his entire team had to struggle, sometimes in very difficult circumstances, to meet up these children, to save them. And the point that he has brought up today is, I think, extremely important, very valid. The children are going through some kind of a psychological trauma as well, along with the trauma of the disease. How do you, as a doctor, feel about the psychological impact that this is happening and the mental health of our children?
So, thank you, Mr. Bachchan, for putting the question so well, and I'm inspired indeed by Kailashji's experiences and the way he's encapsulated the whole pandemic and the impact on children. And I completely resonate with this idea that this pandemic is a global disaster. And unlike other global disasters, like we've had massive disasters like the tsunami and the Gujarat earthquake, this is not a one-time thing, because those disasters often come and create havoc and death and destruction, and then leave us to at least pick up the pieces and rebuild our lives. But this is just ongoing, and it never seems to end. Every time we try to raise our heads, it knocks us down. So indeed, the experience of everybody, particularly of children, adolescents, teenagers, has been traumatic, deeply traumatic, particularly those who are in the forefront of facing it, whether it is through deaths and devastation in the family, or complete loss of livelihood, and so on. So it is imperative that we try and look at it from different lenses. So there are two things that I would like to highlight, and the knowledge or the ideas that I'm bringing here is really a collective knowledge that we've gathered in the last 1.5 years in working with families, with children, with schools and colleges, with NGOs and some government agencies. And what we have figured is that it is not just the fear, anxiety, and the devastation that the virus has caused in our lives, but it is also the lockdown, which has had an equally severe impact on children's mental health and development. So the first bit, of course, particularly in the second wave, when many young people have encountered death in such tragic circumstances of parents, of people they loved, they have, of course, got impacted deeply, and there is deep-seated anxiety, trauma. However, that's not the end of it. When this passes and when the dust settles, then the symptoms of depression, anxiety, substance misuse, self-harm behaviors, all those things start surfacing. And we have seen that rampantly. Very tragically, we have lost some young people to suicide in the last few in the last few months, and these are kids we have known over a period of time, families we've worked with, NGOs that we've worked with. This might have a deep-seated impact which may begin to unfold over months, years, and generations. We have seen that in the big wars and the famines, and perhaps in a partition, that when people encounter death, destruction, and such helplessness, then the aftermath of that can be very, very prolonged indeed. And we have to be mindful of that. The second part, of course, is the lockdown itself, which has caused children from, staying at home, not having any avenues or connections with the outside world, and school, which is a vital, part of their growth and development. I mean, how do children grow up? The little kids will go up, go out to the parks. They will go to their play school. They will interact with other kids. They will learn how to play, learn language and social skills. For the last 1.5 years, none of these kids have had that. The slightly older kids are the ones who are probably, looking forward to going back to their football coaching or their guitar class, the new friends that made. And yet the older ones, the adolescents and the teenagers, they are missing out on the rites of passages, going from one phase to the other. Like so many, millions of children who completed school in the last couple of years have not been able to go to college. And that's devastating for them, because that's something, it's a milestone. It's a part of their lives which makes their identity, forms their personality. I wonder sometimes as to what kind of courage or what kind of bandwidth or emotional safety they might be able to feel to take the challenges in the coming world.